This is my Sony a6000. This is my Go XLR. This is my keyboard, this is my mouse. And this is my main shooter. It's the Canon 77D, yeah, a big fat full body DSLR camera. Nothing mirrorless, nothing small about this thing, it's a tank. I got this brand new all the way back in 2018 as a little birthday gift for myself, and I believe it actually came out brand new a year before that in around 2017. So do I plan on upgrading to something newer anytime soon? No. And why am I not upgrading yet? Well, I'll tell you why. Essentially here, folks, my 77D does everything I need it to. Yeah, it might not be able to shoot in 4K, but it can shoot up to 1080p 60 frames per second. But even at 30 frames per second, it shoots at a high enough bit rate to where in Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, which is what I use, I can actually upscale it to 4K, and because it has such a high data rate from the 1080p, at an upscaled 4K, it looks really, really good, and it actually sometimes looks so good, it legit looks like that it was shot in 4K to begin with. So like, that's pretty darn cool, right? And yeah, of course, you know, it might not have as many, you know, autofocusing points as, you know, the newer line from Canon or Nikon or definitely Sony for that matter. But for photography, it's all I need, because instead of upgrading my camera body, I upgraded my lenses. That's the biggest thing, everybody. Whenever you're a beginner in photography, or whenever you're a beginner in videography, or maybe a little bit of both at one time, you can get by with a very bare bones basic camera body, but as long as you have some good glass, even if it's old vintage glass that you pick up for like, you know, 30-40 bucks, you can still get some incredible shots, and I cannot stress that enough. Okay, now look, the photos I'm going to show you here in a second, they were all shot on my 77D with the Canon Nifty 50. Yes, it's the official Canon 50mm lens. They were shot all wide open at f1.8, but I darkened them up a little bit because I have a variable ND filter on that, so I'm able to adjust exposure that way instead of cranking up that shutter speed. You know what I mean? So everything looks nice and natural. The whole thing here, folks, is that I got my start with a Canon T5, and it was a very, very basic, bare bones photography camera that did just so happen to shoot video, but it was definitely a photo camera first. Primarily because it didn't even have contrast autofocus in video. It was all manual focus, or you could hit the shutter button to autofocus that way, but it didn't track a subject or anything like that at all. So it was primarily a photo camera. But around that time is when I actually got really invested in YouTube, and my very first YouTube channel kind of blew up, so I wanted something different. So I swapped that out for a Sony a5000, and that camera had everything I needed. 24.1 megapixels, I believe it was, you know, good battery life, had a flip up screen, all that jazz, and continuous autofocus while recording. It was so fast, it looked beautiful, just Sony colors right now. Mwah, it was beautiful, you know. But over the course of me getting better at YouTube and, you know, getting more comfortable on a camera, I said, hey, you know what? I really want to spice up these videos of mine. So I'm going to try my hand at B-roll. And I did some B-roll shots. I did some product photography for the reviews that I happen to be doing. And people said in comments, hey, Terry, you know what? Those product shots look pretty good. Like, do you do actual photography, or is this just for your YouTube channel? And I would always say, no, I'm not a photographer, but if I think a shot looks cool, I'll see how it looks, you know? And that's when I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I might have something here. And I asked some friends of mine if I could take their photos. Heck, a matter of fact, one of them, I actually did their engagement photos, and to this day, those photos are the only ones still in frames hanging up on their wall. And back then, I didn't know anything. My camera was set to auto. I didn't know anything about ISO, shutter speed, aperture. Like, I had no idea what I was doing, you know? But once I learned that, hey, Terry, you know what? You might have an eye for this stuff. That's when I really dove into my a5000. I learned what every setting did. I learned how to set things up for the environment that I was in. And people was asking me to take their photos all the time, and you know what? They all came out great. Yeah, it was a little. I mean, the Sony a5000, everybody. Like, if you know what that is, it looks like a small point and shoot camera. Like, I can never forget. I showed up to a photo shoot with a couple friends, and I pulled out my a5000. Somebody actually asked me if it was a Kodak point and shoot. They said, "You're going to actually take professional photos with the throwaway Kodak?" And then that's when I explained, "Oh no, it's just a mirrorless Sony." They said, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool." So like, nobody really ever took me seriously with it, but the results spoke for themselves, and people loved my work. They really did. But if it wasn't for learning the basics on just a entry-level camera like the a5000, I wouldn't know anything, So if I would go out and spend $10,000 on like a, high-end Canon mirrorless right now, if I didn't even know the basics, and if all I did was set that camera to auto and off to the races, I would be doing not only myself, but that equipment such a huge disservice. Because if you're letting the camera do all the work, you are not learning a dang thing. And it's like with anything. Are you born good at math? If you are, please teach me. But no, 9 times out of 10, you're not just born good at something. You have to work at it to perfect your craft. Like, you don't think that, somebody who is a master carpenter didn't just get to that level of carpentry overnight. No, they had to learn. They had to work with their hands. They had to make mistakes. And whenever it comes to mistakes in photography, folks, let me tell you something. I learned about shutter speed the hard way. Okay. I had a really nice shot lined up, and long story short, the subject moved just a little bit, and because I didn't have my shutter speed set correctly, it was some motion blur, and it made them blurry and out of focus, and I couldn't save it in Lightroom. I was so upset. Otherwise the shot would have been perfect, but the model, she lost her footing, she lost her balance, so she had to catch herself. But I will say though, throughout her catching herself, she actually did manage to keep the pose. She just had to kind of just shuffle a little bit, but after that she recomposed herself, and I got the shot the second time. But the first time, it was perfect. The lighting was so folks, whenever I'm shooting outside, I automatically default to a shutter speed of like 1/500th of a second, just to make sure I can freeze stuff in real time. You know what I mean? Take a frozen piece of time, and that's it. But just the moral of this story is here, okay, folks. It doesn't matter what you learn on, whether it's again a 10,000 piece of kit or a $200 piece of kit you got off eBay. If you don't know what you're doing, you are not gonna know what you're doing. You know what I mean? No professional photographer should ever keep their camera in full auto. I mean, maybe in like certain situations, sure, but 9 times out of 10, you always want to go full manual just to make sure you could pull every bit out of that camera you can get at that point in time. Now, it especially helps if you're in a controlled environment, like, a well-lit studio, maybe an office space like my office here, or if, let's say, you have a cloudless day and you have nothing but uninterrupted sunlight, that's perfect too. So again, full manual, go in there, tweak the settings to your heart's content, get the perfect shot, boom, you're done. Okay, you are done. But the thing here though, folks, is that again, you have to start somewhere, and you have to learn. We all have a day one, so do I. And the biggest thing that I really want, novice amateur photographers, or just up and coming photographers, okay, that you have to remember is that you are going to take so many photos, and you will probably hate about 99.5% of them. But it's that 0.5% that you are going to love so much, and those are the ones that you are going to want to share to Instagram, share to Twitter, share with the world. You know what I mean? Because the way I see it is this here, folks, and I've been doing photography professionally, quotes, for the past 5, technically 6 years now. You know what I mean? And there will be times where I'm out doing a shoot with somebody, and I'm just snapping off photos. Hey, just do this, do that, do this, do that, just whatever, like, you know, giving direction and stuff. And oh yeah, like on the camera, oh, these look great. And then I put them into Lightroom and it's like, these did not turn out at all the way I wanted them to. So then I go out and I, you know, find the ones I want to use. And then those are the ones I want to share. Like, I kid you not, last year, we all wore masks and everything except for when the model was doing, you know, her poses and whatnot, getting set up. I took nearly 500 photos at a shoot, and I ended up only publishing around 20 or 30 of them, just because the other ones just were like, what I normally do for those kind of shoots is I have my camera set to you know, burst mode, to where it will take like, you know, 4 or 5 photos at one time. And I just snap them off just to make sure I literally get every shot that the customer's paying for, you know. And then I go in, find the ones that we both like. We agree, hey, you like these, and these. Okay, so then I'll edit them, send them back to you, see if you like it. Boom, we're done. Post them. That's it. You know what I mean? But again, it doesn't matter if you've been doing photography or videography for days, months, weeks, years, decades. It doesn't matter. There are going to be those photos that you absolutely love, and then there's going to be those photos where it's like, I can't believe I took that. I never want to see it again. Burn it. You know what I mean? So another big thing here too, folks, is that the #1 camera that I recommend people get whenever they are wanting to get into photography, not videography, folks, okay? Photography for just photos, is the original Canon 5D. You can find bodies of that online on eBay for like under $200. And it's like, I think, what, a 12 megapixel camera. It's but it's full frame, so that just means much bigger sensor than your average APS-C you know, camera out there. It's going to be able to capture a lot more detail. It's going to have a lot more dynamic range. It's going to have it's going to have the capability to have a little bit better creamy bokeh, depending on what type of lens you put on it. And that's another thing here too, folks. Yeah, you can spend $200 on a, you know, old Canon 5D, which again, I do recommend. But there's one thing you don't want to skimp on, and that are your lenses, because your lenses can be very soft or they can be like tacked sharp, like pin needle sharp. You know what I mean? And the thing here, folks, that I always tell people, that spend as little as you want on a camera body to an extent. Okay, folks, to an extent. Just make sure that the camera body you are looking for has the features that you want. But you can always overspend on your glass, because 9 times out of 10 your glass will follow you, camera body after camera body, especially if you're staying within the same families. Like, you know, if you buy all Canon glass, all Sony glass, all Nikon glass, as long as you're staying with that same manufacturer, 9 times out of 10, even without an adapter, you can just slap that old glass on a new body, and you have a brand new kit right there. You know what I mean? And that glass that you spent thousands on a couple years ago might look even better now, because you have a much more advanced body. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying to go out and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on lenses. No, what I always recommend is get the Canon 5D, pick up a cheap kit lens, or like a knockoff Canon Nifty 50, knockoff 35 millimeter, whatever you might have, and just start practicing. Like, that's all you got to do, is start practicing, okay? I cannot drive this point home enough, folks. We all have a day one, and frankly, I'm really tired of influencers online giving the impression that, oh, in order to do what I do, you have to get the very best from the get-go. No, you don't. You really, really don't. I know that might sound easy for me to say because of the equipment that I have, but the equipment that I have here, it's a buildup of the last 5-6 years of hard work, and I'm very grateful that I was able to do what I do what I love, to be able to afford and to own all of this. But trust me when I say this kind of thing did not happen at all overnight, not by a long shot. So everybody, hey, look, if you have any comments, concerns, just whatever it might be, sound off in the comments below. I love talking to you all. I love answering your questions. If you want a game every once in a while, you can find me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/HeyIt'sTerry. And yeah, folks, happy photography or happy shooting, happy taking photos. I'm horrible at outros, guys. I apologize. See you all next time.